action. Rules that keep things going smoothly and fairly. Rules that help us get where we're going. Help us work together, play together, and live together. Of course, in small groups, we sometimes get along without rules.
But there aren't any loud noises, just the sounds of working. We call these work sounds. Listen.
When many of us play together, rules make the game. Rules help us play fair with each other, so all can enjoy the game. Rules that apply equally to all. It's up to each one of us to know the rules and follow them.
Why do you suppose this room is so quiet? Perhaps we can learn from the teacher.
At New York's Madison Square Garden, a city college quintet faces five fast and fancy wet boots from the University of Oregon. It's the opening contest of an intersectional doubleheader, and New York draws 2 points worth of fresh blood.
And you know, we have found that knowing when to be quiet is a part of growing up.
16,000 fans watch the boys from the Pacific Coast as they try to stem the onslaught of City College fever. But it's all over when Silverstein shoots off the hardwood, decades the ball, and the ball game for CCNY 38-36.
Because a quiet room helps all of us learn.
How do you do it?
Well, each of us knows how to work quietly. That's very important.
But the evening sport is a long way from the locker room. In the second game, a team of Northwestern Wildcats is matched against St. John's University of Brooklyn. The lads from Illinois are off to a springboard start when Bob Coble eases Allen into the basket to take the lead.
Do you think you could walk this quietly? Listen to this work sound.
But tribal warfare comes to the gymnasium as the St. John's Indians retaliate with 2 points. But now on, the game is touch and go, with 10 men helping to get it there. A beautiful display of teamwork, and Northwestern gets in the number column with sharp shooting Bob Coble doing the honors.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learn the Game, where you've learned that you got an F for effort. I hope all of you are doing well today. Politicus Rex, how are you today, sir?
Okay, I guess.
Still waiting on your Oasis tickets?
No, I'm not going to any COVID party.
Yeah.
No, I'm just. It's pouring rain, so it's just one of those days.
Yeah. Yesterday, I sat out by the beach, got my hair a little bleached, and I had a fantastic day yesterday.
Yeah.
But it was raining a little bit. Yeah. So you wanted to talk about basketball pace of play and how it's important, what it means. You brought this up in a recent debate I was in. What are your thoughts on it entirely, with the aspect of how does it affect across all time, or why is pace important?
Well, that's a better way of saying what I wanted to explain is why it's not important, why it's over emphasized. It's just a hollow stat. Mm-hmm. When you give pace of play, that all that is, if I understand it correctly, and for all you like advanced stat nerds, correct me if I'm wrong, it's how many possessions per game.
Yes, making it simple, it's that there's some equations with turnovers and free throws, but it's supposed to equal out to how many possessions per game there is.
But if you have people equate that. I hear it so often. Like I remember an absurd comment saying that Kobe's 81 is more impressive than Wilt's 100 because of the difference in pace of play.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
That is just outright ridiculously stupid to say something to that effect. That is so beyond wrong
Mhm.
that I don't even know exactly how to come back to, with that, because there's literally, I could come up with 7 different angles to prove that statement wrong.
Yeah.
7 different ways.
Mhm.
And it's just the most insane idea. So many fans will sit there and use pace of play as an excuse to prop up their favorite players who played in a slower pace, and will outright honest mistake or lie, say, oh, well, the 90s, 2000s was the slowest pace ever, and my guy did this. Okay, first of all, it wasn't the slowest pace ever, so you're wrong right from the get-go.
Mhm.
Second, all you have to do is look at the all-time leaders in shots taken per game to see that pace has absolutely no effect on your favorite guy's statistics.
Yeah.
The best player on the court, which I assume your favorite player is the best guy on the court.
Mhm.
I don't see a whole lot of Liddell Eccles fans running around. It's, it's Jordan, it's Kobe, it's LeBron, it's Magic, it's Bird, it's Wilt, whoever, Kareem.
Mhm.
Probably should have mentioned Kareem sooner in that one. But the star player, the main player on your offense, gets the ball as many times as the coach wants him to get it. Does not matter what the pace is. When pace slows, shots are taken away from the lesser players, not the stars.
Mhm.
Nobody went to Allen Iverson and said, look, Allen, we're going to really go with a defensive-minded strategy, and we're going to slow the pace down, so we're going to have to cut your shots, big guy, okay? All right, that does not happen. Ever. Not ever. If you look at the top shots per game, George Mikan is number 11.
Yeah.
Played when there was no shot clock. He played in a game that finished 19-18. Okay? It has no bearing on an individual player's shot attempts or shots made.
Yeah.
That is already in the mix, in the formula of the coaching staff, regardless of the pace. Your guy is going to get their shots. So using pace as any type of argument across eras, and specifically it came up in your debate, Kareem versus Tim Duncan. And your opponent used the argument, well, Tim Duncan played in the slowest era, so if you mathematically extrapolate it out and do an even proportion, which you don't do because that's not how it works. But if you do that, then he averaged about the same as Kareem. No. That's not how you do it, because Timmy got every shot he wanted to get and that Pop wanted him to get, regardless of what the pace may be.
Yeah.
When they said, go to Timmy, Ginobili didn't shout, well, we don't have enough possessions left, coach. Okay. This stuff is never taken. So many fans don't understand chronology. And by that, I mean, they don't understand time. And fans always look on a flat screen. They look at a 3-dimensional game 2-dimensionally, and they look at the history of the game in reverse. I've had people tell me when I state a fact that Michael Jordan averages more points per game than Wilt because he made 581 three-pointers.
Yeah.
He got 581 extra points that were not available during Wilt's time. And I'll have fans come back at me and say, well, Wilt wasn't going to shoot three-pointers anyway. That's not the point. The rule was there was no three. And a rule was put in to purposely increase scoring. And then the guy that had the benefit of that increased scoring rule scored more points.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. I never said one was better than the other. I never said one shot better than the other. I stated a mathematical fact. But fans get butthurt. Pace is more relevant to rebounding because the ball's coming off the rim. That's a given. It's coming off the rim. Rebounds are team stats. Individual guys can lead in rebounding. Wilt did it 11 times in 13 full seasons. They count individually. They keep track of them individually. And we talked about the beginnings of the game and how that started with scorekeepers keeping individual stats. But a rebound happens. Period. It's going to happen. So that's an automatic. But whether or not your particular favorite player gets the shot that time down court is not necessarily an automatic. That's individual stats and team stats are not, you just can't flippantly go back and forth between them and correlate them evenly. That is not how it works. And so way too much emphasis is put on pace. I mean, there was a play last year, is before Luka got traded. There was a Dallas game, and there was a viral YouTube video where they went back and forth for 5 possessions, and neither team got a shot up. There was either a violation, a turnover, a travel, offensive foul, a pass out of bounds, for 5 possessions. So how is that counted in pace? Because that's 5 possessions without even a shot taken, much less a shot made.
Yeah.
Now, I went and looked at 2003 Spurs pace and points per game, and the Milwaukee Bucks 1974 championship season pace and points per game. And that, just looking right there, it wasn't the same percentage of increase or decrease, if you're going to say chronology. It went down, obviously, from 70s to 2000s. But it wasn't the pace was, I believe, 105 possessions per game for Milwaukee, but their points was 107.
Yeah.
And then for the Spurs, I believe it was 95, but the points were right about also at 95. So it's, even when you're trying to use it the way they want to use it, it still does not give you a solid number. It still does not correlate directly to scoring.
It's what kills me is it's just a math equation, and people pretend that the math equation is going to turn out to how they would have played if they had more or less possessions. And That's not life. That's not anything. That's just math. It doesn't prove anything, because like you said, people are going to play differently, and really what's particularly going to happen is that the star players are going to get the ball and they're going to run the game how they want to run the game, being the coach. So when you look at it and you have a 10 possession more per game, which is really the spread in respect to the recorded pace that of this statistic that they have. It's about a 10-point spread. So that's 10 possessions. So even if your star player got all 10 possessions more, what is that going to turn out to? It's not going to turn out to a significant difference. And that's, it could, but the thing is that's hyperbole that they're going to touch it every single time.
And that they're going to make the shot every single time, because of those 10 possessions, even if your best player got an extra 10 shots, on average, they make half of them.
Yeah. Which is 10 points, but you also have the 10 rebounds.
They don't make any threes.
Exactly.
Then what if you also got to put into consideration, the free throws. And here's where people miscalculate free throws. They count the points. If you're taking let's just keep it at 2-point shots to keep it simple. If you're taking a 2-point field goal and you get fouled on half your shots, they're hacking you. They're going after you that game. You take 10 shots. You get fouled on half of them. And you make all your free throws. Assuming it's only 2-pointers, how many points do you have?
You get 10 more points if you you said 5 shots or 10 shots.
You take 10 shots, you get fouled in the act of shooting on 5 of them, and you make all your free throws. How many points do you have?
I'm sorry. So you take all 10 shots.
Yes.
You take 10 shots, you make 5 prior to the free throws. So you have a 5 extra, and then you get fouled 5 times.
And you make all your free throws.
Then you got 20 points.
You have 20 points. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your shooting percentage?
On that, it would be 100%.
On free throws or field goals?
On both, because if you get fouled in the act of shooting, it doesn't count as a...
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a glitch in the system that I see with a lot of people, a lot of fans arguing the numbers, is they forget that if you take a shot and you get fouled, it doesn't count as a shot. It's not recorded as a missed shot.
Yep.
And they fail to understand how that affects pace as far as the actual pace, not the pace, the number that we're talking about, whether it's 100 or 102 a game, but the actual pace, the players running up and down the court. Your guys are not running up and down the court. You can play a slow down game. If what we just described happens, then the pace number is high. Your field goal percentages are extreme.
Yeah.
But your actual pace, the actual work you're doing on the court, is substantially less. And if you watch the game, you're like, wow, this is a slow game.
Yep.
Fans automatically equate high pace is showtime.
Yeah.
And then slow pace is, take your pick of who played really, really slow, Detroit, in 2004, whatever. Or was it 2003? No, it was 2000.
They won the title in 4,
yeah. So it's, it's not even watching the game. You can't calculate pace when you're watching it, because it doesn't automatically mean a high-paced game. Woodage brought up a couple great points already in the chat, mentioning the 71 Bullets, right? Only team in history to have 2 guys average 17 points per game. They only won 40 games that year. 2 big things he left out of that, though. Number 1, that was the fastest pace year ever. And number 2, they went to the finals. Okay.
Yeah, I thought you're talking about the pace number. I thought the pace number didn't come out till 73.
73, 74. Yeah, well, they don't put it beforehand because they say they can't accurately figure it because you don't know. Offensive rebounds were not separately recorded. So if you just count rebounds and assume they're all defense, you get a higher pace number. But we know that some of those rebounds were offensive rebounds, thus it's not a change of possession.
Yeah.
But you can go back and you can get an idea. You can look at Kareem for 15 years at what percentage of his rebounds are offensive and make an educated guess for that season that it's going to be about the same.
Yeah.
So if you take the time to do all this, you can make an educated guess.
Yeah.
And that's when when they were keeping the scoring was really high. So you put the two together and it's not a set figure, but this is my point is people are going, okay, so that means that when we do have the number, it's a set figure. We know it. It's known, but it's not. Pace is still not known. The number that they give you is not indicative of how the team plays. If you play the exact same offense, the exact same way, and you have a 10-year point guard running your offense, your pace number is going to end up higher than the exact same offense, the exact same players, but you have a rookie point guard because that rookie point guard is going to play a lot less efficiently.
Yeah.
Or rather the other way around. I said that backwards. Your pace will show higher because of the added turnovers, not just his turnovers. You just can't add that. You'll have a bad pass where the guy you're passing to will get his hands on the ball. He'll touch it but cannot control it. The turnover goes to him. But that's on the passer.
So one thing that kills me about pace too is that when I look at it, when I look at a game, I think that even if you hold on to a possession for entire 24 seconds or 23.9 seconds, but you're moving the ball in the half court, you're passing the ball, you're cutting, and you're just constantly moving. I think, and I think you were alluding to this, it's counterintuitive to think that that is a slower paced game when you're moving the ball versus what's considered a higher paced game now, where you run up and you just wait for 4 seconds on the clock and you check up a 3-point shot and everyone's jogging back and forth and having a 3-point contest. It looks on paper as if it's a higher paced game because by its definition it is. But is it really a higher paced game? Are you really putting pressure on people by jogging up and down the court and shooting a 3-point shot? And I'm not saying they're not at all. You're still taking a shot. But how much are you really pushing the action to score? And how much of that really should be considered pace outside of the math equation? Because I think in ways it's a faster paced game when you're in the half court and you pass it 11 times in 24 seconds and you're cutting and you're moving. I think that's a lot more pressure, let alone with the with fast breaks and all that. But I'm saying in contrast to today's game where there's a lot of 3-point shots, now it's considered one of the highest paced games of all time, which it doesn't look like it, in my opinion.
Yeah, we discussed this in another show about how the offensive strategy of the game when it was new was basically the strategy was away from the ball because the ball handler could not dribble, could not move. So all the movement was off ball. you had 4 guys doing intricate offensive with cuts and picks, screens, and everything to get someone open, because it was more like football with a quarterback because he couldn't move. So now all the motion is with the guy with the ball.
Yeah.
So you can have a guy grab a long rebound, turn, take off to the other 3-point line and chuck it up. And okay, it's faster pace, but you got 4 guys that hardly moved that might not have even gotten over half court.
Yeah. Well, and that's what kills me, because it's not even a fast break, and I'm using a little bit of hyperbole, but when you're walking up to the 3-point line just to take a shot to walk back to the other one, versus doing a fast break, you get the ball on the baseline from the rebound, you either run it up by yourself or you pass it to another guy that's on the break. To me, I think pace is defined. I think it coincides with pressure, or I think that's how most people interpret it.
Yes.
I think that's how most people interpret it.
That's probably what I've been trying to say for so long and never really said it correctly. It's more the application of pressure rather than the actual number of points that get tallied.
Yeah.
It's how hard you're grinding, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's how I think pressure coincides with possession in pace, because I think they're one and the same. It's kind of like space time. It's, it's all combined. So I don't think pressure and pace are separated. I think that, and I'm not going to try and nerd out on science, but I think there's distortion in certain phenomena that just doesn't make sense when you're saying it's the highest pace of play ever. It's the highest pace ever in the NBA, and it doesn't even look like it, because there's just a number attached to how many times you chuck up a 3-point shot. It doesn't make sense, but I think most people interpret it again with pressure. So the fast break, that has pressure. If you're passing the ball 11 times in the half court, that's pressure. And the possession, I think, is part of it, but it's about how much you're impacting trying to score the ball. That's just how I look at it. I understand the number associated with it. I understand how they come to that conclusion that it's a higher pace game. I just don't think, I think when you're playing the game, it's more so about pressure, how you feel pace.
Well, most people don't all I ever hear when people talk about the slowest pace ever, which isn't the slowest pace ever, but it's what fans all call the slowest pace ever, is the 2000s, correct?
Yeah, generally, yeah.
You're basically saying the end of the 90s through like what, 2010-ish, 12, somewhere through there. Well, that all I ever hear when I ask why is they talk about, it's the defense.
Yeah.
The defensive rules and this and that. No, it had nothing to do with defense. The rules don't change. That's why rules were, the rules are changed because of the people playing the game. Offensive goaltending was made a rule because of how Wilt played the game.
Yeah.
The lane was widened, not on a whim, not just didn't think it looked geometrical enough. It was because of how Mikan played.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive rules that came about that fans claim slowed the game down, once again, it's the whole chronology thing. It's because of the people playing the game, they changed the rules that slowed it down. It was the big man era, the modern big man era. You had who? I mean, Ewing, Olajuwon, Shaq, Mourning, Robinson, Duncan. You had these Hall of Fame centers, and I'm sure Mutombo, and I'm sure I'm missing one or two, at least Yao Ming. These dominant fives come in, and so coaches were running their offenses through their fives. Okay. And thus, the game became slower because, unlike guards, this is one anomaly in basketball, one quirk that I find amazing that nobody actually thinks about. But if you consider this one attribute of the game and keep it in your head, it really explains a lot of the game's history and a lot of what you know about players' styles. Basketball is one of the very few, if only, sport where the fast little guys run less than the big guys. Steph Curry plays three-point line to three-point line.
Yeah. Generally speaking, yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. Centers play the full 94 feet. They play basket to basket.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a 7-foot, 250-pound guy go from all the way at one end, if he's your main offensive weapon and he grabs the defensive rebound under the basket, well, you have to slow the ball down and wait for him to get ahead of the ball so he can take his position on the offensive end under the basket so you can run your play, thus slowing pace. But that big man gets the ball more in that scenario. You start upping the pace, going up and down the court, your big man gets it less. And that was the part of the argument with the Kareem versus Tim Duncan that the other gentleman had completely backwards, saying that if he played under the same pace as Kareem in the 70s, he would have averaged even more. No, he would not. He would have gotten the ball less. Your wings and your guards score more in an up-pace offense because they're the ones that get out running. Your big men are getting the rebound and outlet passing it. And the shot's taken before they can get to half court.
Yeah.
That's common knowledge of anyone who has played basketball. And the thing with you and I is we played the exact opposite positions. I played out top. You played down low. You understand, because you had to do it, exactly what I'm talking about. Your work was done. If you grabbed a tough rebound between two guys, you wrestled it away from them, you fired the outlet, you would get up past the free throw line. But if your man was not hauling butt down to the other end of the court, you couldn't. Because the worst thing as a big man is to make the outlet pass, decide you're going to get out running. Your guy scores quick. The guy that you got to cover never came down court, and he's back down under your basket waiting. And you got to turn at midcourt and then sprint back to try and cover him.
Yeah.
So when you get a fast break offense, the big men run less. If they run down the court less, they do not get as many scoring opportunities. That's just a fact of the game. So the whole Duncan would have averaged more if he played in that era is completely wrong. Young Kareem would have scored more if he had played in the 2000s. Yeah. Because they would have waited for him, because he would have been even more important in that modern big man era. You would have needed him to win that battle at the 5 position against Robinson and Shaq and Yao Ming and all of them. And that's where fans always get it wrong talking about pace. They just look at this number and then they make a direct proportional equation that, okay, it's a 15% increase on the pace number, so I increase his points per game average by 15% and I get this, and that's what he would score. That's not how it works at all. In fact, like we said, when you're talking about big men, the number goes backwards. and their numbers actually would go down in reality. If you look at the top 25 in shots taken per game, it literally covers every era of the game.
Yeah.
You have Elgin Baylor, number 1, Michael Jordan, number 2. You have Wilt. You know, you got Allen Iverson. You've got Kobe. You've got Mikan. You literally have every era covered. So obviously, an individual's numbers have absolutely nothing to do with the pace number. And another thing is the pace number. If the pace says 110, what does that mean? If I knew nothing about it, and I just read a number that says pace 110.0, what's that number mean? What does that mean? What is that telling me?
Possessions.
What
Or
possessions? Possessions for who?
The whole both teams together.
The whole league.
Well,
For
yes, the
every
whole
game
the
played
whole league on
over
average.
an
Yep.
entire year.
Yep.
It tells me nothing about how this team played against like if you look at possessions and Boston against Detroit in 1986, and then Boston against LA in 1986. Is the pace going to be the same for both games? No, it's going to be wildly different. The Boston-Detroit game, the pace may be 90. But Boston-LA, the pace may be 120 for a certain individual game if the guards get hot.
Yeah.
It's a generalized number anyway that includes every team over the course of a whole season, every game played.
Yeah.
And both teams combined, like you said. It's such a generic number, but fans act like it's a law, like it's an individual free throw percentage. And that's not what it is. They sit there and they don't even understand what the pace number means as far as how it's applicable to what happened on the court. And that's what aggravates me so much is like, if you at least understood what it's what it's representing is what I mean. I'll ask, what is pace? And they'll give the definition you did at the beginning of the show, that it's how many possessions and their allowances taken for turnovers and that type of thing. But no one ever says, oh, well, that's a league average for the possessions per game for the whole season for every team. It's a generalized number. They never say that, do they? They always act like it's a specific number applicable to whatever player they want to plug in. And it's not.
So we have the hoop conductor, aka the casual in here, who was the one who brought up pace of play. And he says, I never alluded to Tim Duncan being able to average more if he played in the 70s.
You absolutely did. You absolutely did. That's why you brought up pace. Why would you bring up pace? Why would it enter the discussion if that was not what you're doing in a debate comparing those two players? Were you talking about salsa? Because what pace are you talking about then? That's literally exactly why you brought it up.
Yeah.
And bringing it up is fine. But you need to understand exactly what those numbers say when you bring it up. If you want to talk about rebounding numbers, team rebounding numbers, yes, pace makes a big difference. That's obvious, right? Because a rebound happens every missed basket. No matter which team grabs it, there is a rebound. It's an automatic. If there's a shot attempt and it's not a make, there's a rebound. So it's a direct correlation. So team rebounds directly correlate to pace. Yes, absolutely. If you want to talk about Bill Russell, Bob Pettit, Wilt Chamberlain, their rebound numbers being inflated because of the pace of play. Absolutely. Absolutely. But the thing you need to understand, even talking about that, is them getting the rebound is not an automatic. A rebound to be had is automatic. But who gets it still goes down to effort. You still have to go get it. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about Wilt's rebound numbers, he led the league in rebounding 11 times. That's what you pay attention to. Not what the particular number is, because of pace, that can change, right? Look at his numbers through his career. They changed. As they made rules to slow him down, his numbers started dropping. And as he got old, the knee injury, obviously. But pace has a big thing to do with that. But the fact that he led the league, because everyone plays by the same rules, means that he was the best rebounder for well over a decade, that he had no challengers consistently.
Rex, are you okay with the hoop conductor coming up? I think he wants to talk to you about his stance.
Sure, but the problem is he's taking all this personal.
All right, I've dropped the link for him. So whenever he comes in, why do you say he's taking it personal?
Because we had a discussion on the other show in the comment section, and he was taking everything personal. I said that the number one, these are debates. My understanding of a debate, I know actual debate rules, and the majority of people that you debate do not actually understand debate rules. And they start going off and saying things and using evidence that is not actually admissible in an actual debate. A bar discussion, yeah, sitting on the side of the court waiting for next, yeah. But in a organized debate, there are rules that you go by. Hearsay, innuendo, and opinion are not allowed in debates. Just arguing numbers and facts. And every fact is open to be verified during a debate. If you've ever had a debate class or done debates, like school debates on the debate team, if you throw a number out there, you have to prove it. You have to prove where you got it from, and that it's fact checked in actual time, in real time, while you're doing the debate by the people that grade the debates.
I agree. Rex, why do you chat? Rex, why do you chat?
Why what?
Why do you chat?
Oh, I can. I'm sorry, I can barely hear you. Is that just me, or is that?
His microphone is a little low.
Is it?
But yeah, versus mine. But I know mine's louder.
Let me see something real quick.
Well, I'm old and it's raining outside. I thought maybe it was just me.
Shit, it probably is me. I don't know. I literally just finished. I just finished setting up this streamer for the OBS shit. Here, how's this? Is this better? Is this better?
I can hear you. I just gotta pay real attention.
Okay. So one, going to well, let's sidetrack the comment section situation. One, when we were debating and I mentioned pace, I did not mention pace to allude to Tim Duncan being able to score more if he played in the 70s. That is something that you could have just verified by just asking me what did I mean by that, like Dart did. What I meant when I was bringing up pace was that when you are taking into account pace, that is also contextualizing why you get so many opportunities. Now, I do not involve myself in these hypotheticals to put Tim Duncan in the 70s, same way I didn't do a hypothetical to put Kareem in the 2000s, because it does no justice for a genuine conversation or a genuine debate. I was just simply pointing out Tim Duncan playing in a slower pace meant there are less opportunities, along with the rule structure that comes with the pace meant that there's less opportunities, and the defense is a little bit more tight-handled on his offensive production to where he can only put up so much. Same way Shaquille O'Neal during that time period, that's why I mentioned him as an example, did not average 30 during that time period, not because he's not great enough to average 30, but because the pace and the defenses at that time period did not allow him to do such. So when I was bringing up pace for Kareem in the 70s, it was just simply to contextualize why his numbers were so monstrous. He's still an all-time great offensive player. He's a greater offensive player than Tim Duncan. I even think I admitted that during the debate. However, him as the demonstrative offensive numbers that he was putting up is not a full accurate depiction of who he was as a player. That's what my case was. Do you have a problem with that?
Aside from being incorrect? Personally, I have no problem with it because I don't care.
What is the incorrect part? What is the
because as speed rises, centers get the ball less.
You sure about that?
No, we just had that entire discussion. Do I have to do it all over again?
Would you like to watch some film to show how that thought process is false? If anybody gets more opportunities, it would be the big, because 9 times out of 10, when you're looking in fast breaks, who is typically the
how many fives are on the fast break? How many fives are running the fast break?
In Kareem's case, it was frequent. It was Moses Malone. It was Wes Unseld. It was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So it was rather frequent.
Moses Malone and Wes Unseld did not run the fast break.
That is not true. What?
Dude, I had Bullet season tickets for my entire life. Okay? I saw Wes, I saw Will, I saw those guys.
Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes literally won a championship based off of their ability to run the break.
I was there.
Okay,
Wes
so
did not run the break.
Then you understand that
Wes did not run the break.
Would you like to watch film?
I've watched more film than
that's fine. Do you want to watch it? Because I actually have 2 games at my disposal currently where whenever you're ready, we can sit down and watch it. Because I'm telling you,
I'll point myself out in the crowd for you when we watch it, assuming they were home games.
That's fantastic. Well, I think one of them was a home game, but that's fantastic. The point is, even in the 70s, that is the greatest point that you could point to in terms of bigs benefiting off of fast break, especially like today's game as well. But in the 70s in particular, the bigs that could be able to have mobility enough to be able to get down to a downhill, especially in a fast break situation, those are the ones that saw the most success. That is a irrefutable fact.
And that is not Tim Duncan.
Nobody said that Tim Duncan was able. Again,
that's literally what you're arguing with.
That's not what I'm telling you what I'm arguing. I'm telling I'm telling you what my argument was. My argument had nothing to do, when mentioning pace, had nothing to do with Tim Duncan. It was to contextualize the numbers that we were looking at in front of Kareem. That was not to say Tim Duncan could come and do and replicate what Kareem was doing or do better. That was just simply Kareem's era being contextualized. That's all that was. For the benefit of this conversation, I would love if you gave me the same respect I'm giving you, of taking you for what you're saying and just grasping the information that you give me. Don't correlate no other shit to what I'm telling you other than what I'm telling you. So when I say what I'm valuing in terms of pace, in terms of the discussion I was having with Dart about Kareem's time in the 70s, I am telling you the pace was the pace argument was literally just to contextualize the numbers we were describing Kareem producing. That's all it was. It was not to correlate Tim Duncan to that era. It was not to down shame Kareem. It was just to correctly contextualize the era he played in and how it benefited him.
I think that I think in general, I think that there were some centers that would go and get out on the break, but I think in general, most centers are the ones that are passing out the break because they get the rebound. I'm not sure with the 70s with the whole unselled Kareem, who was getting more out on the fast break. I think I'm sure. I mean, everyone every once in a while is going to get a fast break opportunity. I think everyone ever, whether you're a center or not, has been gotten a pass on a fast break. I think that in general, though, again, I don't know per era, so I haven't done enough research on that, but I would imagine that that's typically the case across time, is that you're less likely to be on the fast break and you're more likely to pass out to the fast break as a center to a winger guard, because you're generally under the basket or closer to the basket than a winger guard.
Would you consider? How did you think that Willis Reed, along with Walt Frazier, saw like the most success with the Knicks during the 70s?
Is that for me or for
anybody?
Rex?
Anybody. I'm genuinely trying to get an understanding, because for me, when I'm looking at what Willis Reed for the Knicks before he got injured, obviously Bob McAdoo with the Clippers, Bill Walton, obviously with the Trailblazers, especially for how young that team was, they were getting a lot of their stuff off of fast breaks. Nate Thurman with the Warriors, Walt Bellamy. I think that these type of Jack Sigma, especially with Dennis Johnson in the crew, I feel like those players are like that was like what? That's about like 40% of the league at that time period in terms of talented centers. And those are the ones that saw the most success, primarily due to them being able to dominate on the fast break. Now, fair enough, I'm not saying that they got majority of their points. I'm not saying that. But compared to any other time in NBA history, it is a fact that they saw more success than anybody else in producing high rate numbers, primarily due to more fast breaks being productive.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers with the fast break and how many the centers are scoring in the 70s versus across other times. Do they even have those numbers for what they got on fast break points? Do they have stats for it?
They do, but it's like on a year-to-year basis. They don't have like an average for the entire decade like they do in the 90s onward. I think I could get that though.
So for Kareem, how many fast break points did he average in 71, where he was MVP champion, and then let's say 19. Well, I mean, through that whole time the pace was still fast. So
yeah,
but I mean,
in 71, if I remember correctly, I think it was like 14.6 or something like that of his 32.
He got 14 points of him scoring
in transition
off a fast break.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm trying to see if I can get the average for the league for that season. Well, let me see Kareem's. However, the point still stands. Even with Kareem averaging 32, I think, especially with us going back and looking at those seasons, Kareem was like running in transition, or if they aren't in transition, he's getting quick looks at the rim, primarily due to the 3-foot rule as well. That's also a point that I mentioned. That is a fact. That is a fact. Double teams were not as frequent during the 70s or the 80s as they were in the 2000s.
Which means open cutters were not as frequent.
I agree. Because the lane wasn't as clogged. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just taking you at your, so the 14 points is the fast break, and what is being considered, what is being, or you said in transition, I'm not sure, like with the stats, how are the stats measured where those 14 points, what does that consider? Is that just that
like
it's always in a run?
You asked like what was the definition of a fast
is it always is it always just that they're in a running motion when they score after getting a pass from is it always
during
in
that
a
time
constant
period
motion or
sorry,
like
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, like what is it? If what is it scoring in 7 seconds or less, or like I'm just trying to figure out the criteria for what is considered, because I mean we can talk about what a fast break is, but I don't know how they measured that number. You know what I mean?
Well, John McLendon, I want to say like 79. It was like 65, one or the other. When he had came out with the book, what was it? The Fast Break Basketball Fundamentals and Fine Points. When he had came out with that, the definition was a fast break consists of an offensive action that occurs when a team gains possession. So, I mean, based off of that logic, if you're getting the rebound and immediately getting downhill before the defense is able to set up, that would be considered a fast break, right?
Well, that's what I'm asking. How is that stat measured? Is the offensive player, are they stopping? Are they turning their back to the basket? But to your point, does the defense have to have all turned forward towards the offense in a running motion? I just don't know how that the fast break point is tallied, because I think it would be less if I think it could be that if you're considering, well, okay, maybe not all the defense is back. Does he turn his back to the basket? Like there's all these variables there, because 14 points, and does that include points off of free throws made off of a foul?
No. Fast break is typically no, it's not typically. It always occurs after a rebound, a steal, and a turnover. That much I know for a fact has always been the characteristics of the definition throughout in NBA history period, because you have never considered a inbound for after scoring the basketball as a fast break point. Now the nuance has delved in a little bit more in today's game, to where you see the Indiana Pacers get recorded fast break points for scoring within like 5-6 seconds of a shot clock, right? But during that time period, just like the simplistic definition always had to do only with rebounds, steals, turnovers.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just curious about how they came to that number. How they came to?
It was very arbitrary. To be fair, it was very arbitrary during that time period, because they were still setting in stone rules, structure, what counted, what didn't. That's why they kept rotating illegal defensive rules back and forth to see what was going to stick. So it was very arbitrary with like what they valued as a steal, a bucket, because there was a time period where people were getting credited for steals that they weren't even involved in the on-ball process of stripping the basketball, but they got credited for it because they picked it up. So I think it's to answer your question simplistic, I don't think they had like a complete set in stone definition.
Yeah, so that's where because 14 is a lot out of 32. For fast break. So I was just curious how they counted it. If you don't know, or if there is not any explanation for it, then I guess it's just a number that generally looked like a fast break, which I think everyone agrees has a general idea of what a fast break is or looks like. But there's usually a standard for what is a fast break. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
It's like the 3-point line has the 3-point shot has a 3-point line. You know what I mean? A foul is the various ways that you could get a violation that way, et cetera. There's a standard for how you measure things. So if it's unavailable or if you don't know, then yeah. I mean, yeah, generally, yeah, we all generally know what a fast break looks like. I just didn't think that Kareem would have that many points, which I mean he could have.
Why wouldn't he? Kareem has. I was surprised that you didn't mention it. Kareem has multiple years of him being an anchor of a team that was able to be not just first in pace, but be first in pace by like a wide margin, especially during those Laker years when he started to slim down so that he could be able to keep up with the league. Like Kareem, like when it comes to his mobility, he's quite easily a top 3 mobile big in NBA history. It's like him, Wilt, and like Hakeem.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm just saying for that amount of points. And I mean, you hear qualitative stuff like Magic Johnson's like, okay, well, I'd go out on a fast break with Byron Scott and James Worthy, and then if that didn't work, Kareem would come up behind us. Kind of stuff like that. So again, it's not to say that he never did the fast break, but to say that he was a fast break player, I think is a different thing. You know what I mean?
I mean, but is it that crazy though? I mean, because during his time in the league, like he was getting, I want to say like upwards of like 98 to 99 attempts, like in terms of team like attempts at the rim. Like he was getting upwards of like almost 100 shots up in terms of team form. So like, is it really that crazy to think that he could produce 14 points, especially with how efficient he was compared to everyone else? Like the standard of efficiency at that time period was raising primarily due to him being the standard. Is it that crazy to say that he could be able to produce 14 to 15 points any given night on a consistent basis?
I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think that he'd get 7 fast break points a game. 7 fast break shots scored a game.
Shots made. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't think he'd get 7 a game. Like I don't. I'm not saying it's not true. I don't like. I would not have even thought that, because it like you said, he was skinny, he was strong, especially in the beginning part of his career. But he was his bread and butter was the skyhook. It's not to say that he was incapable of doing those shots. And I don't want to pretend like that I wasn't alive then even, but seeing I've seen more Lakers stuff. I've seen some Bucks stuff. It just seems that, like, to my point is, I wouldn't think that he on average made 7 fast break shots a game.
Would you believe me if I told you that he has years where he's making upwards of 14 shots a game?
Making 14 shots a game.
14 shots. Like not 14 points, 14 buckets out of however many shots he's attempting. He's making 14 of them.
But yeah, but I thought we were talking about fast break. No.
Yeah. I'm saying that to say, if he's making 14 shots, right? And that's already unprecedented in terms of NBA history outside of like the 60s and 70s, right? Where they were making 10 or more, especially if they were elite offensive pieces like a Wilt Chamberlain or a Willis Reed, even Bob McAdoo, what's his name? Spencer Haywood, even. Like it wouldn't be that crazy for them because they were the standard. And so what I'm saying is, if he's making 14, 13, 12 shots a game in totality, is it really that crazy to say the reason why he was able to sustain that high level of shot making was because he was getting easy looks at the rim as well? Like it was mixed. It was a mixture.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it'd be half of his production as him scoring on fast break efforts when he was known for his rebounding and he was doing the outlet pass. I'm not saying it. I don't know. and I'm just trusting that those numbers are true. I'm just curious how they came to that conclusion. But if that's the case, that's the case. I mean, I just don't know, and I wouldn't think that he was scoring on 7 offensive transitions on the fast break. Like I would think that that he was doing more on the other side, and he was scoring more so instead of half of his shots in the half court. That's what I would think, but I don't know.
Again, the same thing to you. I extend the same branch to you. If y'all, whenever y'all want to watch any of these games, there is a server that we literally are watching these games to get gather a bigger understanding of the era's my vocabulary just went out of the window. Prior to the modern era. And I would be ecstatic if you guys came to discuss it with me. Because in regards to the comments situation, Rex, I didn't take anything you said personally. I don't even think you took anything I said personally. What my statement was regarding was a general statement to any old basketball head that disregards statements that are made from people of my age group or lower, simply because we may not see the same things. But that does not mean what I'm saying is false, especially when I have factual evidence to back it up. Like, again, when we were doing the debate, Dart, I showed the homework, the evidence of this is what the pace was at that time period. And then we could get into a discussion on why that is. But the foundation of my statement is still factual. So the one thing that I do not want to hear during our conversation is I'm lying. Because it's not a lie. You may disagree with my perspective on why that fact is a fact. That's 2 different perspectives, and I'm okay with that. But the same way I won't call you, Rex, a liar for how you view Tim Duncan's scoring prowess, I would appreciate the same respect of I view Kareem's scoring as more of a product of the era he was in rather than in totality who he was as an exact player. Because I don't think any of these guys are 35-16 in any given situation. But I do believe Kareem is one of the greatest offensive players of all time. And that's all I came on here for. But I appreciate y'all. I got a stream in about an hour. But I appreciate y'all. I'll definitely continue to tap in with y'all. And whenever y'all ready to have this discussion, please come to me, because I'm prepared for it.
I want to watch one of these 70s Kareem games. I want to see if he makes 5, because I want to see if he even makes 5, which I think would be fantastic, versus averaging 7.
Yeah, I'll send you a video right now of Kareem in 1970 versus the Hawks.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to see. I want to just see how often he got out and scored like that.
I got you.
Because averaging 7 is a lot. So it's something that I would not have thought at all. And you said that's for his career?
No, not for his career. No, that was in 71.
In 71, he averaged for the season 14 points. Not 32 points. The points off the fast break. You said 14 points off the fast break?
Yes, 14 points off the fast break of his 32, because I think it was like 31.7.
Okay, yeah.
Here, I'm finna send you. This is 70-71 versus the Knicks. And I think the Knicks at that time period was like a top 10 in pace.
Okay. All right.
Right now. I'll send it to you.
Well, thanks for bringing the heat, Casual.
Hey, for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure.
All righty. Well, I'll catch you some other time. I'm actually going to shut this thing down in a moment. I got a debate T perfect on who's greater, John Stockton or Bob Cousy. But thank you for coming by, and
Travis.
go check out Hoop Conductor on YouTube.
Hey, cook Travis for me, all right, Dart? Cook him.
I will.
Yeah.
All right, later, man. How do I get back over here? I'm stuck up here now. Anyway. Do you think that Kareem scored 14 points off the fast break, just off top of your head, in the 70s?
No, I was just listening to y'all talk so we could get it on tape to prove my point. Number one, I went through every comment that he was speaking of. I never once called him a liar, not once. I have them all right here, right on the phone, just reading them. As far as fast break, there is a definition for fast break, and what it is a fast break ends when a pass goes backwards beyond the free throw line. Then the fast break is officially over. Free throws made off of fouls on a fast break are fast break points.
Okay, that's what I thought could have been.
Kareem did not average 7 baskets. He averaged 14 points. When he would come down as the trailer in the Bucks offense, he would come down as a trailer, and when Kareem is coming down as a trailer with a head of steam, more often than not, they fouled him.
Yeah.
He'd make 2 free throws, usually. Obviously, he shot around 75 to 80%. So he'd make 3 out of 4. Those count as fast break points because the foul was on a fast break basket. So any points resulting are fast break points. But the fact that he used those numbers to argue his point, but didn't know where the number came from or what the definition of what it meant was, proves exactly what I was saying earlier. Not understanding the material. How can you argue, well, he was getting more fast break points and then greeting off the number, but you don't even know how they came up with the number and what it includes? That is exactly my point, and he proved it. That's why I kept my mouth shut. So I could win the argument without even having to argue. Proved my point. That's all I'm saying. They use these arguments, they use these numbers without knowing the definition of the number they're using and how it was accumulated, how it came to be. Woodage coming up with more gold. Unseld is considered the greatest outlet passer of all time. So how is he finishing on a fast break if he's doing the outlet pass?
Yeah. I'm sure he has scored on a fast break, but that's what I was
on occasion, but specifically that was Hayes's position, was to come down as the trailer because he had the famous jump shot.
Mm-hmm. That
was not, and Unseld would joke about it in his later days about I ain't here for that. That's not part of my job. Used to be the joke, but whatever. I mean, it's what just occurred on this show is exactly why I contemplate never ever doing shows again every time we finish a show, because it's just all blather. People discussing that they don't even know where the number came from. Couldn't even tell you, okay, well, what are they calling a fast break? Do free throws count towards that? Didn't even know, but he's using the number. But he doesn't even know if that's included in the number. That's my point. He just proved it in glaring, bright yellow neon sign letters. Exactly what I was saying before.
we don't have to have people call up if you don't want, Rex. We could just
No, I'd love people to call up if they're actually going to ask a question instead of defending a bad point with more bad points. And as far as saying I wasn't saying that Duncan would have scored more, well, that's exactly what you're saying. If you're doing a comparison between two players and you're saying, well, this player has these numbers because he played in a higher pace era. What you are insinuating, what you are referring to, what you are alluding to, pick your word, is that your guy would have had similar numbers if he had similar situations. That is what you're arguing. That is why you bring it up. Otherwise, why are you bringing it up in a debate? Did he bring up their shoe size? No, because that doesn't matter in the debate. You bring up numbers that matter when you're directly comparing the two players. And then he says, I didn't bring them up to directly compare them. That's what the debate was. That's what you're doing. But this is why every week when we're done, I spend until Wednesday saying I'm never going to do this again. Every week for a year because of stuff like that.
I am going to talk about Bob Cousy's shoe size in this debate.
Well, you can talk about his shoes because that's a very important part as to why he's greater.
I really need to finish this up. Luckily I did a Bob Cousy debate against True to King. So I had all Bob Cousy's information. I just needed John Stockton's. So I think just in general, I have enough information to win.
They're both remarkable. Let's just say that off the bat before it even begins. They're both truly remarkable players.
Yeah.
And people. If you actually read the books about them, they're actually both phenomenal people.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Rex, you got any last words for the people?
Nah, it appears no one cares what I say, so whatever.
Woodage cares. And I care.
Yeah. That's the only reason I keep coming back and doing these things.
Yeah. And then,
but stop taking pace like it's some definitive number. It's not. It's a generalization of a generalization of a generalization. It's a group. It's a number for every team all combined for 1 year under rules that now are not applicable.
Yeah. I think that I wonder what the spread is on the sidebar, what the general spread is for pace. I would imagine it's probably around up to 10 possessions, which is kind of the spread of, again, this is another generalization, but that's another general spread of the recorded pace otherwise. So sometimes you may have a team that only has 90 some possessions to 100 some or whatever. I think it's 20 points.
Look at
20
Denver.
possessions. Yeah.
Look at Denver in the 80s.
Yeah.
Compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
Or Golden State 90s.
Yeah, I think Denver had something like 130 or something like that.
Yeah, when they had Vandeweghe, English, oh gosh, oh man. I can picture the guy plain as day, and his name just jumped right out of my head. What's really bad is I actually played with his brother. Yeah, and then you had Fat Lever on that team. Calvin Nat. That's the other guy I was thinking of. Calvin Nat. Yeah. And then Dan Issel. Older Dan Issel, but still. He's a forgotten great. Should do a little reading up on Dan Issel.
Yeah, it should. I should do more. And coach. And no front teeth.
I can relate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to take off to Emerald Isle.
All right, Rex. I hope you have a fantastic day. I also.
Yeah, the sun's come out now. It rained the entire show, and now that we're ending it, the sun's come out. How perfect is that? It's God telling me to stop doing this. You'll give me sunny days.
All right. Well, in half an hour, I'll be debating T Perfect, and I need to actually get my material together. So
He doesn't even respond to me anymore. So
T Perfect.
yeah.
Oh, what did you? Oh, what do you mean when you were saying that he's going to lose or whatever?
No, just when I make comments about things that he says in the debates, he never even responds to anything I say anymore, which is fine. I'm
right.
pretty sure he dislikes me like most people. I don't dislike him. I just don't think he's a great debater.
Do you think that so would you give an F for effort for the hoop conductor on that one? It kind of sounds like you would if you were grading him.
No, not for effort. He's doing a lot of effort. He's obviously doing a lot of research. The problem is, and this is where people don't understand, and saying someone doesn't understand isn't saying they're stupid. It's not saying they don't have the ability to learn. It's just saying a fact. You know what? I don't understand how to do brain surgery. I don't. Doesn't mean I'm dumb. I just don't understand it. So many fans, and I said this, first thing I said today, they see the game two-dimensionally on a screen. That's how they see the game. That's how they learned it, watching it. And that's how they understand. That's how their brain absorbs the information. And then, but it's not a two-dimensional game. It's three-dimensional. You miss something when you're just looking at highlights and just looking at a piece of paper, looking at numbers. It is a game with 10,000 moving parts.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy to understand. I was lucky to be in certain situations throughout my life that put me in positions where I could absorb a lot of information that you just can't get on YouTube or Google. Doesn't mean I'm better. It just means situation. How many times have you heard me say it? Situation and circumstance. I had the right situation and circumstance. So I was able to learn a whole lot about this game. And I try to share it to enlighten people so they can try to understand it and see it the way I'm able to see it now because of what people taught me. But these days, you can't do that. These days, it's all the same. It's all everyone's defensive. Everyone's they'd rather argue the point from a week ago rather than just listen to the conversation of today and find nuggets of knowledge and truth that they can then apply moving forward. No one does that anymore. No one can take criticism anymore constructively to learn more about the game. So, no, that's not what that shows. This is what you really need to look at to understand that situation you're talking about. Instead of going, okay, let me think about that. Let me see. I think I see what you're talking about. No, it's always, no, what I said is right. So, okay, believe you're right then. Go about your life.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to learn and understand more about the game, then don't talk to me. There's about 7,999,999,996 people that are not listening to me right now. Just be one of them. Okay?
Make it 7.
Yeah. Well, you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care where this player, or that player, or this championship, or that trophy. I don't care. I don't even play anymore. Let me show you something real quick. I told you I was going to get this. See that? Turn it the right way.
Nice.
Any idea what that is?
It's a netball.
That's a netball, because I bought me a netball basket and I'm learning netball. Just so I can learn something new, because I'm so tired of talking about basketball because no one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares about understanding or knowing the truth. They care about their fandom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan, so I don't care.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have the argument, the debate, I don't believe in arguing over players, but if you're going to have an actual debate about who should be considered the greater player, I think it's Bob Cousy by a mile.
Yeah, I think so.
But to be honest, a huge chunk of that is because of off the court.
I think his on the court is, I do think a huge chunk of it is off the court too, but I think even his on the court presence is also fantastic, and I think it's greater than Stockton's. I think the two big things.
Yeah, but it's a bit
Stockton
closer though on the court.
Yes, it is. And
Stockton
really,
could have done what Cousy did, but he didn't have the opportunity. You know, Cousy had Russell as his main teammate. All right. Stockton had the mailman. So as soon as he came to the Utah, he became a point guard. If you know Stockton's history, he was not a point guard in college. He led his college conference in scoring 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
He was a scoring guard. Mm-hmm. He became the consummate point guard because that's what the coach, Frank Layden at the time, needed with the other players that were on that particular team. And boy, did he do what they wanted him to do.
Yeah.
But he could have averaged 20 a game for his career. He could have had Cousy's type of career, but situation and circumstance.
All right,
but he never could have done what Cousy did off the court.
Absolutely. I got to use the bathroom and
Yep,
I got to go.
I know. Me
but
too.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
later.
you for coming. Thank you, everyone who joined us. If you watch this back or watch this in the future, learn the game. Don't get an F for effort. Put some time into it. Try to become a better mind in the game.
Oh, I just realized now I'm passive aggressive. I believe he called me in the comments. Sorry, I didn't mean to answer your question, Dart.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great day, everyone.
See you later.